So we talked about that planning plays a key role and it's often overlooked. And we talked about healthy aging can help us become a better caregiver. But I go to these seminars and presentations all the time and I learn in different aspects. And what I find is I'm always walking out the door and I'm thinking, wow, what a great performance, what a great seminar. I open that door and I'm like, wait, now what? I just learned all this information, but how do I get started? What do I do? So I want you to all take your registration packages and open it up, and you'll find a package of information for this seminar. And what I'm going to do is I included 3 care planning sheets that you can take home with you, and that can be the start of your family care plan. So that can be 3 of 25. There might only be the only 3, who knows? But at least you have a way of getting started and you can actually see a physical document of what I'm talking about. So the first one's the likes and dislikes. Kathy, can I borrow you? Everybody find it? Put your hand up if you haven't found it. There you go. Okay. So the likes and dislikes. How this one is if your parent is hospitalized. So for example, I'll say parent because as a spouse you'll probably know your husband or wife a lot better. But as a parent, pretend my mom is hospitalized. I've spent a lot of years with my mom, but I have no idea what her likes and dislikes are. I'm not going to be able to make her very comfortable in that hospital bed if I don't understand what her likes and dislikes are. So here's a simple sheet on page 2 there and page 3 of a lot of different options that you and your parents or your loved one can go through and write down what they like, what they don't like, and how they can be made more comfortable. One of my favorites ones is, I hate sleeping with my feet under the blanket. I can't stand it. But if I'm laying in a hospital bed and I'm unable to communicate that to anybody, and my feet are under there and I can't kick the blanket off, I'm going to be going crazy. And my life, I'm not going to be healthy aging because I'm going to be finally getting my first gray hairs. The second one is the care provider roles. This is a big one, and you probably should have a few plans in place or quite a few conversations with your parents or siblings before this one happens. But this is a great sheet because it causes the whole family to get on board, because as primary caregivers, which I'm sure most of you are, you realize that often you feel all alone and there's no one to help you. This sheet gets everybody on board before crisis. So your brother, he agrees to doing the mail and the bills, and your grandkids, they can do the house cleaning. And when all of a sudden something happens, you're not running around doing it all yourself, because you open up your care plan and you say, well, hold up. Fred said he would do this. Jane said she would do this. And you call them and you say, Mom, we already discussed this in the plan, and it makes everybody's life a lot easier, and we can all be happier. And last one is my favorite one, and it's called the NaviCare Dare. And this is a dare that I made up, and it's about 60 questions. There's 20 tasks there, and they're not very hard tasks. And often I know with my grandmother, when she had dementia, it was hard. What do I do with her? It was hard to communicate with her, and I was starting to feel like the quality of care I was providing to her was going down a bit, because my creativity levels were going down. Well, the NaviCare Dare is something I dare every one of you, if you are looking after somebody, to go through with and do these roles together, these tasks together, and it's gonna give you ways of having fun. So, example, read a book in the park, or go out and buy your guys' selves some new outfits, and check it off and go through all 20, and you're gonna feel a self-accomplishment afterwards, again, which is gonna help you age healthier. So in conclusion, I want to point out that independence is a gift. Being able to attend this forum, for me being able to stand in front of you guys and be healthy enough, it's a gift, and I've been working my whole life to stay healthy and keep my independence. So I don't want to give that up. So let's all make the choice today to recognize that planning is the key to helping us age healthy. Let's make that choice today. Thank you. I left some time for questions, if anybody has any. Yeah, at the back. Where do we get these planning guides? These three specifically are from Navicare. And I don't want to do any self-promotion, but when we launch our website, there's actually a care planning formula part 1 course and a part 2 before and during crisis. And you can take the online course, and there's about 25 of these documents. And it takes about an hour a week for 6 weeks. And at the end, you put all the pages together and you have a plan, actually. So we do it for you. But that's all I don't want to be up here selling myself. So any other questions about healthy aging at all? Or what I talked about? Any disagreement or anything? Any rebuttals?
One of the things that we talked about here was this business of planning ahead, the financial side of it, the legal side of it, which is a very essential part, the wills, the living wills, and so on.
I totally agree, Jeff. One thing that I think is a major driver in prolonging independence, which again directly affects healthy aging, is being able to financially afford, because I know, I bet you at every table it was talked about, how do I live at home financially wise if when it comes to the point where I can no longer dress or bathe myself and you're almost forced out of your home. Well, if you want this, you truly want this, and you want it to be a possibility, then you do have to plan ahead, and you have to start. I like to say that the day you retire is the day you should start planning for post-retirement, is what I call it. So it's up at those 80-year-old plus years. So retirement's 65 to 80, post-retirement's 80 plus. And I truly believe two of the best ways are financially wise. So if you have 15 years and you're putting a little bit away all the time, and I know this is tough because there'd be a lot of fixed income and pension, but it is possible if you start planning. It's a lot more possible anyway if you plan 15 years prior than a year before, and all of a sudden the doctor says, well, no, your wife can no longer go home anymore. What do you do? Well, you've been saving for this day for 15 years, you planned for it. Good point, Dick.
And I disagree with that and say you need to start before you're 65.
You need to start in high school.
Thank you, Joan. Yes, I totally agree. Whenever I say before 65, everybody usually goes, bleh. So I like to say 65 because it's hard enough to get people to recognize the importance of planning in their baby boomer years or later than it is for my generation. But that is what I'm essentially trying to do here, is set an example for my generation. So when I'm caring for my parent, which is a baby boomer right now, that a lot of this will be already discussed, and I'm going to do my best to prevent crisis. Because I lived through crisis. I didn't live through it as much as my mother did, and I never cried myself to sleep every night like she did. But I was smart enough to recognize she was crying herself to sleep, and my education degree said, whoa, if I would educated myself and all my family members about this subject, then I won't find myself crying myself to sleep every night when my mother hurts herself. So I totally agree. I think it should start early. But with that being said, I think everybody in here should also start realizing that they need to start planning for themselves, because we're always so focused, as I mentioned earlier, planning on caring for someone else, that we also forget that we're aging. So please take that home and remember, you don't have to start seriously thinking about it today, but at least put it in the back of your head and remember, someone's going to be taking care of me one day. Who should I be talking about some of this stuff with right now? Anyone else?
To get back to what was said earlier when Elliot made her presentation and talked about the regional election too. And I guess I just want to say, in terms of planning, speaking as somebody who had to quit their job to take care of my mom and who I've been cashing any RSPs I've had to live on while I've been taking care of her. So I mean, talk about blowing up your plan. I guess I feel like I will get back on track, and I know that, but I also think it's important for us to think about how we plan to be a compassionate society, and I guess Elliot talked about that, but on a grander level, because I'm in a fortunate position that I at least believe I'll soon be able to find another job when my mom is more settled, and I'll be able to get back on my feet. Hopefully, God willing, health permitting for me and everything too, right? But there's lots of other people who are in more difficult situations and wouldn't be able to do that. And I guess I feel like more than ever, having been through what I've been through, that I think it's important that we all of us who can and have the wherewithal, need to start speaking out and doing our best to make a society that can make a plan that helps people who can't make the plan and don't have the money to set aside.
So you're saying in order to create a compassionate society, we have to speak out more and
I
educate
think
each other?
so. I do. To do whatever we can to make that happen.
Does anybody else have any points they want to make at all? We have a little bit of time here, so open it up. If anybody, I know as a caregiver, sometimes it's hard to find time to voice your opinion, or you have lots to say. Feel free right now. We have probably another 10 minutes.
I think there's a huge difference. I looked after my mom for a while, or make sure she was in a safe place and have the things that she needed. But doing that and looking after a spouse is two totally different things. Totally different.
Where do you find the comparisons? Or sort of the differences? Where do you think the differences lie?
Well, with my mom, I could make sure she was in a safe place. Then I could walk away from there and be away from that. Now, I'm with that 24 hours a day. I do get out because I do work. But when I'm at work, the only day that I have peace of mind is on the Thursday when it's at the day program.
I was respite.
I agree with her 100% because personally, I have been a caregiver for people with home care when I lived in Alberta. It was so much easier to go out and be compassionate to people, and then when your job was finished, you went home. You went into your own life. But when it hits your spouse, it hits you too. And that area is sometimes very, very difficult to deal with.
Yes. I think a lot of us probably went through that.
So, and you talk about planning. I agree with your planning until it happens and it falls apart. I did a planning, for instance, we just bought a house. I didn't want to buy a house at this age in our life. Bought a house because we couldn't find housing suitable for us in the city without having to wait several years. So bought a house. If my husband was to die today, I would be on the street financially. So I bought a house with what I thought was a legal suite in the basement. After we got into it, the suite is not legal, plus the house is crumbling apart. And that's in the last 6 months.
Oh, I feel for you.
So,
Well, let's give her a round of applause for her strength for coming today. That's gotta be tough. Anyone else? Any other comments? And I agree with the planning, and I do slightly disagree because I do think planning is throughout the life aging process. I think it can prevent a lot of conflicts if you plan early, but when you find yourself in a crisis and your life does unravel, it's the plan that keeps you guided and focused, which is, to me, the key to help relieve a lot of those emotions, is because you have something to turn to for support, because I know as caregivers, we often feel like we're alone and we have no support. Well, even though it's just a document, you'd be amazed at how much, in my experience, that can help people. All right, well, other than that, we'll wrap this up, I guess. We'll have Pat come back up. Closing remarks.